And it's very difficult to distinguish between a genuine service provider or a genuine provider of goods and a parasitic company. And often the differences are in degrees. A genuine provider of goods or services to the extent of 60% of its business, it may make 40% of its business doing activity which exploits its customer, gives him relatively less or nothing in return while making him a contract debtor. One segment is the company actually enters into a contract with you, therefore there is some kind of a contract, a contractual obligation which you may enforce by going to court. The parasitic element comes in the fact that the contract itself is so meaningless, is so flawed, has so many holes in it, it basically is unenforceable. So, an intrinsically unenforceable contract towards which you are required to pay money. Your end of the contract, which is payment of money on demand or at specific intervals, is absolutely inviolable. It is ironclad. Your side of the contract is ironclad, whereas the other side of the contract, the part that the company has to do, has to deliver, whether it's goods or services, that is basically unenforceable, extremely subjective, lots of ifs and buts, lots of holes in the contract. They create so many conditionalities on your own performance. The complexity of your performance of the contract, that is the complexity of your end of the contract paying money, is so tremendous that it almost guarantees that you will fail to pay as per the schedule or as per demand, as per the contract. Increase the complexity on your side. On their side, they increase the simplicity and they keep adding all kind of waivers and disclaimers and gaps and force majeure situations and so on and so forth, so that they get lots of escape routes, and it is almost impossible for you to enforce that contract in a court of law. I don't expect to make sense to a lot of people, but I do hope to make sense to a few people who are stuck with this kind of contract, this kind of dealings with a corporate. And I'm hoping that those are the guys who will suddenly realize, oh my gosh, this is my problem. This is exactly what has happened with me. Another situation is, often multiple parties are created in the contract. So you think you are entering into a contract with a company A, but the company A will make the delivery of its goods and services subject to the activity of a company B or a C. And then when company A does not deliver and you try to enforce the contract, you go to court, for example, to enforce the contract, you find that the company is saying, I would have given him what I'm supposed to give him, these goods, these services. But company B, who was part of the deal, who was structured into the deal, company B and C and D did not deliver as expected, and we are now disputing with company B, C and D. So this is one situation. I want to be very specific and very concrete, and I hope to be able to give you ample number of examples of how this kind of a structuring works and how you can be exploited by a company perfectly legally. It is almost impossible to prove the criminality behind this. It is impossible to prove the conspiracy, but there is both conspiracy and criminality. It's just very difficult to prove. So let me give you a few examples of this. My favorite example, because that is the one I've been wallowing in, is the building construction industry. You enter into a deal with a company for an under construction property. You, the buyer, are sold an idea. It is an idea. It is based largely on sentiment. People who get ensnared by these projects, they have a sense that the written word, contracts, are absolutely ironclad. That if a company says it will deliver something, it has to deliver it. Otherwise, they think that grave disaster will ensue on that company, that it can be taken to court, that the government will crack down on it. So people have a very naive faith that contracts, what is promised to you, like you are promised a flat of 1500 square feet in return for 3 crore rupees. You fail to understand that there are all kinds of ifs and buts contained within the writing of that contract, that agreement. You fail to understand that these flaws in the contract make that contract very difficult to enforce. You also fail to understand that your own circumstances may make the contract extremely difficult to enforce. Simple example, non-resident Indians staying in Dubai will find it impossible to go to the police if a company cheats them. Out and out cheating. Not a brick on the ground. Not an inch of space has been sold to them. Money has been collected for X amount of land, or this kind of a fantastic bungalow or a villa or whatever. A dream has been sold to them. Literally a dream. A person living abroad will find it almost impossible to go to the police in India. It is impossible to approach the police in India. If you are an Indian living in India, if you are a Mumbaiker living in Mumbai, if you are living within 1 kilometer of the police station, you will still find it very difficult to get a complaint registered against such white collar criminals. Almost impossible. 1,000 Indians will try and maybe 1 or 2 will succeed in getting an FIR written. If an FIR is registered, again it's an uphill task to get actual real action against the criminals. A civil case again is going to take donkey's years in court. It will offer every possible excuse and escape route to the perpetrators of the crime who have taken your money. And it will offer every possible obstacle to you. Every possible obstacle that can be thrown in your way will be thrown in your way. The judges don't listen to you. Your lawyer betrays you. He jumps over to the other side. He remains silent when he is supposed to speak up. He stabs you in the back. He is friendly with the other side. He is friendly with the builder. He is friendly with the lawyers of the builder. I'm giving you examples. This happens. This is a fact. And it is almost impossible for you to detect. Even if you are an Indian. Now, if you are not an Indian, if you are sitting in Dubai, if you are sitting in Singapore, if you are sitting somewhere else in the world, in US or UK, and you have invested, you are thinking you have invested money in India, you are tremendously handicapped in going to court. You will struggle to get to the police. You have no access to the police. You may happen to come here on holidays for a month or 2. Are you going to spend that month or 2 going to the police station and spending entire days? Even then, your complaint will not be registered. Even then. Maybe if you engage a lawyer who will charge you an arm and a leg because you are an expat, an NRI, he will charge you an arm and a leg and he is likely to exploit you. He is overwhelmingly likely to exploit you. Fact of life. If he is charging a person who lives here 1 lakh rupees, he may end up charging you 5 lakh or 10 lakh rupees or something else entirely different. But you will still not get the service that you should get. So, you will be fighting an uphill task against the builder who cheated you in the first place. You will be fighting a further uphill task, a further uphill battle against your own lawyer. And you will be fighting an uphill battle against the police. and the judiciary. They will wear you down. Why would anyone want to put his money into real estate in India if he is living abroad? Absolutely irrational, completely irrational decision. Your ability to enforce the contract is exactly zero. Anybody who lives abroad, his ability to enforce a contract, even if it is an excellent contract, brilliantly written contract, and that's a very bad assumption because most contracts are not brilliantly written. They're very badly written. They're written to support the builder. They're written to support the service provider here in India, and they're written specifically to make it unenforceable for you. If you're abroad, even if you're in India, you find it almost impossible to enforce the contract. But if you're abroad, forget it. It's not happening. Enforcing a contract in India, using Indian judiciary, using Indian police, using Indian lawyers, it's not happening, boss. It's just not happening. Now, the same thing may be true of other places also. The same thing may be true if you are sitting in Malaysia and you bought a flat in London. Same issues, same type of issues. I know someone who was sitting in Singapore and bought a flat in Dubai. Same set of issues. Exactly the same set of issues. It is unenforceable. So, here is my point to you. You are entering into an unenforceable contract, and this is the meat of the real estate industry in India and in Dubai and in some places like that, also in London. They earn because you cannot enforce the contract.